defense question.
Okay.
Just why is this working?
Can I start with a statement? I will start with a
Oh,
statement.
I'm sorry.
I'm a little superstitious. Had a good day of practice. Go ahead.
No, two more, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No, we've had a good week. The part that was a little frustrating, we actually had Monday or Tuesday and Wednesday we had lightning, so we couldn't go outside, right? So we've been waiting for this moment, and today we had a full day outside, and actually, right now, the position of the sun, everything is right about what would be on game time, so it's kind of good to get out there today and see exactly where we're at, and with that, open up from an injury standpoint. Kind of case by case. Isaiah has been really good. He's actually got practice in. I think we're going to be able to see him. I think for sure. Taz has continued to track in the right direction. Tommy, don't know. That's going to have to be something. We don't want to make sure that we make a decision on the front end here that can affect long term. So, Dark Angelo will be back with us and feel good. So, not quite there. Josh McCray, it's a good continual day and kind of see where he's at. Same thing as Tommy. On the back end, you don't want to do anything to take away from what we can do down the road.
Before we get to, has Tommy been able to practice at all this week?
Oh, always. Yeah, everybody. Even if you can't do anything, we kind of, engage them in practice as best we can. We do walkthroughs. We do things that doesn't involve any type of movement.
Caleb is a game time decision like that?
No, Caleb won't be with us.
Okay.
What makes the defense?
Just like last week.
What makes the defense work so well this year? What's working? Why did this come together?
Two things. I think last year they began to have some success during the year. They felt it, tasted, smelled it. Obviously, we lost some really good players, but I thought Ryan and the defense staff last spring kind of identified, players that could step into those positions, move some people around, but also continue to build on what we did a year ago. But we're also a little bit different in certain areas, kind of maximize our personnel packages, maximize the skills, and especially up front, Johnny and Keith. I think those guys are ready to make a big step, and really more than anything, trying to maximize our player strengths and minimize their weaknesses.
From a numbers standpoint, stats standpoint, is looking like what you would like to look like. Like in terms of how would you guys do well? So are you doing what you want to be doing?
I think so. We're playing efficient on first down. Johnny and Keith have really done a nice job of having some early down pressures, right? That's a big deal. Like, there's more first downs than any down in football, right? The second most played down is second down, right? And it's just common sense. The more pressure you can apply on first and second down, the better you'll be. And a lot of times, early down pressures are off of offensive linemen that can't, it's play action passes, it's short sets, it's things that they're not in their normal rhythm.
I yield the floor.
I know you said always for practice, but to what degree has Tommy been able to do things this week?
He's been able to do a lot of good things. I'm not going to give you anything.
You got into a defensive struggle last week. How does the team respond in those kinds of games versus how teams respond if it's a kind of shootout type of thing?
I think our responsibility as coaches is to prepare our guys for what kind of game we're going to see. We had two defenses that statistically are amongst the best in the country, and it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that, hey, we're going to be in a defensive battle here. Offensively, I think anytime you go into a game with your starting quarterback, starting running back, anything from A to Z, and then obviously when Tommy got knocked out, there's going to be a natural transition there from a play caller to the way it's signaled on, the players on the field are hearing a different voice. So, there's a lot of things I'm proud of this year, but I think the way that Art went in, and especially when it didn't go well at the beginning, for him to keep chopping wood, doing the things we asked him to do, I was really proud of him. I thought our players responded. I think I've said this before, like, you literally put up on the scoreboard, scores that in that Iowa game that had constantly been there, 6-3, 3-3, 9-7, like those are low scoring games, and we played to the T.
Coach, what's different about Minnesota from the other teams you played this year so far, and what are some keys for you guys?
Minnesota is its own unique animal. I think PJ has brought a style of football there, offense, defense, special teams. He gets comfortable. Obviously, his defense coordinator was someone he retained when they had transition and has continued to build him up. He brought back an offensive coordinator he'd had in the past. Special teams are pretty continuous with what they did a year ago, but what they are different from a year ago, we didn't have that running back there last year, right? Like, he was out, so he definitely brings an element to the game that is very unique from what we saw a year ago. And then obviously a different play caller. They're still doing things, but they're a tempo offense, but yet they're number one in the country in time of possession. So there's things that you got to take into consideration.
Did you know that Kiana was going to make such an impact this year, or as such a young player?
Kiana?
Kiana?
Yeah. Two things. When I called Coach Lynch about him, like, I was like, hey, who is he? What is he? Tell me what he's about. And he's, as a running back, he was a linebacker. He's like, Brett, I don't really know what he is, but I said, is he a good athlete? Is he smart? Is he intelligent? What kind of person is he? because in reality, kind of, he was my first, signee that wasn't maybe on the table the first month and a half on the job, right? We kind of discovered him through the process. And then we got him on campus. I really liked the way he moved. He's explosive, dynamic, a very intelligent person. Great football IQ, but I actually took him last year. We played him in 2 games, and then I switched him to fullback because we were kind of running a fullback system last year. And he did okay there, but I knew he really wanted to get back to linebacker, so we put him in the second bye week into a scrimmage, and I remember he shot the gap and did a rundown tackle from behind, and everybody kind of just had one of those moments like, whoa, and that's when I think you really saw his explosiveness. He's a gamer, he's engaged with the game 24/7. I remember specifically last year, one of our home games, or it might have been Nebraska, there was a game that we had a big play on the field, but on the sideline you saw this guy jump out of the gym and was running and going crazy, and it was kinetic. And when you have someone that's engaged in a game that he's not going to play in, that says a lot to me. He's probably a coach's favorite for a while.
But I've heard you make reference that this winning streak has brought some NIL opportunities. What impact has, I know it's not exactly your field, but what impact has winning had on that front?
It may not be my wheelhouse, but it is our wheelhouse now. It's literally a year ago at this time, everybody was talking about NIL, but it really hadn't, taken full effect into the, just even not only at Illinois, I don't think it was across the country. And then literally when we went into that December dead period and came back in January, it was everything. And that's when we had beginning talks and conversations with administration, and last year the rules were affecting us that we couldn't really be hands-on. And then Brad and I, once that rule came into effect, we had conversations about what was going on in his landscape, what's going on in our landscape. I think basketball was kind of a little bit ahead of the curve. But now, it makes my heart good, like when I hear one's coming in and we can, have a conversation, because one thing that I do proactively when I hear a kid's going to get something, I talk to about, especially the dollar figure, right? Like now it affects taxes. It affects, kids have a large amount of money in their pocket for the first time. Like I distinctly remember, getting done playing, and I went to my favorite quote, right? Confucius says, choose a job of love, you never work a day in your life, because it's a great fortune cookie, but it was also because it was $2.99 and I could eat everything I wanted, right? Like I didn't have much money in my pocket, so you maximize the dollars you had. Now kids have dollars in the pocket that they've never seen before. And the great thing for us in recruiting, I can say to a young man, hey, all right, you're a wide receiver, right? Our 2 receivers just had 200-yard games, and they literally got a $10,000 NI deal on the heels of that, right? Like there's things that you can go to your recruits and say, hey, if you do come here, this is what our guys are currently getting, and that's a huge factor in recruiting, I think.
To what degree is your preparation during game week change when you've got a starter that's a maybe?
Yeah, good question, but I would say that each one of them is case by case a little bit different. You may have a feeling like a guy, like I think, Taz and Isaiah, we felt really good about where they were going to be if they just continued on a normal process, right? Josh has been a little bit, he looks good, and then he's got to indicate with his situation, it's a lot of things driven by how his body reacts to activity, right? And I know he was feeling really good, and then there was a couple days where it didn't feel great, so now we kind of worked it back into it. Tommy, the same thing. You want him to be able to go out there and have success, but ultimately the doctors are going to have to make that decision.
What's homecoming mean to you, Coach? Do you have a good group of former players coming back?
I do know there's a couple players. I heard Kirby's coming back. Milo, who I obviously don't know, didn't play for me, but I know Milo's coming back. I've had a couple other guys tell me they're reaching out, but I'm really excited. Jeff Allen is going to be our guest captain. I talked to him the other day. I've talked to him now a couple times. So, I know former players will come back. I think for our current roster, it's all like, you never know when it's homecoming. Like when I was a player, I never knew. Really, as an assistant, I don't think I ever really knew until I became the head coach. But like the thing with Josh on Sunday to turn a water fountain orange. I mean, my daughters loved it, and I saw the reaction from the people that were at that event. I'm going to quarterback club now. I know it means a lot to the people that went here, their alumni, and the fact that we're winning some ball games. Hopefully, it makes it that much more enjoyable for everybody coming in.
With Art this week, does he get more reps? What's kind of the process?
Yeah, he definitely has gotten a lot more reps. The good thing about Art is he's a guy that prepares as well as he can. Literally from the first game to where we are now, if he wasn't in there, he was standing behind Tommy doing the motion. He would take the snap count. He'd take the read. And it's part of the reason that he played as well as he did on Saturday. It's my 14th year as a head coach, and I don't know if I've ever seen someone prepare more for their moment that wasn't in the moment as him. So it's a lot of fun to see him get rewarded because of it.
On the radio show last night, you had talked about moving the student section. Is that
Yeah.
like a pipe dream? Or is that something that you got?
Yeah, I probably should clarify that. Yeah. So literally, when I got done with my first year, we just had an end of year meeting, and I said if we ever talked about, I mean, I knew I could see our student section was very live, right? So did we ever think about putting them behind, because we get that at certain stadiums. So that's when it was first discussed. I think it's evolved since then. That's out of my wheelbase. I should say that like we've had conversations, but it's nowhere close to it's things that I think would be on my wish list, but sometimes I'm not involved in that discussion.